Hey there. Tonight, we're digging into the past, not for glittering treasures, but for the grit, the cold, and the quiet desperation behind one of America's most romanticized myths. We're talking about the gold rush, but not the version with lucky prospectors dancing by the fire. We're talking about the men who chased a dream into the earth and often found nothing but darkness. We're exploring what it was really like to work in a gold mine in the Wild West. This isn't a story of fortune, but of futility. It's about the relentless labor, the crushing loneliness, and the 100 small ways the frontier could break a man long before he ever found a single flake of gold. If this kind of calm, slow history helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it actually brings you some peace. And I'm always curious to see our quiet community, so let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always strangely comforting to see who's out there, settling in for the same story. So, dim the lights, turn on a fan if you like that soft background hum, settle in, and let's begin our journey into the cold, hard ground of the American West. Before we descend, let's talk about the dream. It's the reason you're here, after all. You didn't travel 1,000 miles by wagon, leaving behind family and a life that was perhaps predictable but safe, for the scenery. You came for the whisper, the rumor that spread like a fever across the country. Gold. Not just gold, but the idea of it. The promise of instant transformation. One day you're a farmer struggling with debt, a clerk tired of ledgers, a man with no prospects. The next, you're leaning on your shovel, a nugget the size of a pigeon's egg in your palm, your future rewritten in a flash of yellow. The newspapers back east printed these stories with breathless excitement. A man can dig more gold in a day than he could earn in a year, they shouted in bold ink. They showed drawings of smiling men with thick beards and heavier pouches of gold dust. That's the myth. It's a powerful one. It's the story of luck, of divine favor, of the earth itself rewarding the bold. It's the story that sold you this back-breaking reality. But the myth leaves a few things out. It forgets to mention the thousands who found nothing but debt. It forgets the disease, the accidents, the crushing loneliness. It forgets that for every man who struck it rich, 100 more struck rock, then struck out, their dreams dissolving into the same muddy water they sifted through day after day. The truth is, the gold rush wasn't a lottery you could win. It was a machine that chewed up hope and spat out ghosts. And you've just bought your ticket. So, let's leave the fantasy behind. The real journey starts not with a triumphant shout, but with a shiver in the pre-dawn cold, in a place that smells of pine, mud, and regret. Welcome to the diggings. Congratulations. You've just woken up in a California mining camp, circa 1851. The good news is, you're alive. The bad news is, so are the fleas, and they've been dining on you all night. Your day begins not with the gentle glow of sunrise, but with the brutal, invasive chill of the mountain air. It doesn't just seep through your canvas tent. It feels like it's coming from inside your own bones. There is no insulation, no heated floor, just a thin layer of canvas between you and a world that doesn't care if you freeze. You're lying on a bed that is generous to call such. It's a pile of pine needles and dirty blankets on the hard-packed earth. The blankets are stiff with sweat and grime, and they carry the damp, earthy smell of everything else in this camp. You haven't had a proper wash in weeks. The river is for work, not for wasting precious time on hygiene. The camp smells like a symphony of human neglect. Wood smoke, unwashed bodies, bacon grease, stale whiskey, and the ever-present metallic tang of mud and damp rock. You sit up, and every muscle protests. Your back, a landscape of knots and dull aches, feels like it belongs to a man 3 times your age. Your hands are the worst part. They are a roadmap of your labor, blistered, calloused, with dirt ground so deep into the cracks of your skin that no amount of scrubbing will ever make them clean again. Your fingernails are broken and black. This is the body of a prospector. It's a tool, and it's already starting to break. Privacy? What's that? Your tent is just one of hundreds crammed into a narrow canyon. You can hear the man in the next tent over coughing, a deep, wet rattle that seems to be a permanent part of the camp's soundtrack. You hear another man arguing with his partner about a missing shovel. There are no secrets here, only shared miseries. You stumble out of your tent into the grey morning light. The camp is already stirring. A chaotic collection of ragged tents, crude log shacks, and makeshift shelters built from little more than hope and scavenged lumber. The ground is a churned-up mess of mud and mule droppings. There are no streets, just paths of convenience worn between tents. There is no sanitation. Waste is thrown into pits or directly into the creek, the same creek everyone drinks from. You try not to think about that too much. You look around at the faces of the other men emerging from their tents. They are young and old, from every corner of America and the world. Farmers from Missouri, sailors from Boston, clerks from New York, immigrants from Ireland, Germany, China, Mexico. They all came here with the same dream burning in their eyes. But this morning, there's no dream in their faces. Just a tired, grim determination. The shared understanding that another day of back-breaking, soul-crushing labour is about to begin. Your joints ache with a cold that feels ancient. You are 25 years old, but you feel 50. This isn't the grand adventure you were promised. This is survival, stripped of all its romance. And the day has barely begun. Your stomach growls, a hollow, demanding ache. It's time for breakfast, the fuel for the grueling day ahead. Don't expect a warm, comforting meal to ease you into your labour. A miner's breakfast is about function, not flavour. It's about calories, not comfort. You head to your small, makeshift fire pit. The air is thick with the smoke of 100 other campfires, a haze that stings your eyes and coats your throat. Your cooking equipment is minimal. A cast-iron skillet, a tin pot for coffee, and a single metal plate you guard with your life. On the menu this morning, the same thing that was on the menu yesterday, and the same thing that will be on the menu tomorrow. Flapjacks, bacon, and coffee. The flapjacks are not the light, fluffy kind you might remember from back home. These are dense, heavy discs made from flour, water, and maybe a little lard if you're lucky. You mix the batter in your plate, a thick, lumpy paste, and slap it onto the hot skillet. The result is a blackened, slightly doughy cake that tastes primarily of grease and smoke. It's heavy in the stomach, a solid lump of fuel. You eat it without complaint. Next is the bacon. Not thick, delicious strips, but salt pork. This is pork that has been cured in barrels of salt to preserve it for the long journey west. It's incredibly salty, tough as leather, and its main purpose is to provide fat and flavour to an otherwise bland diet. You slice off a few pieces and fry them until they're sizzling and releasing their precious grease, which you'll save for the next meal. You chew the tough, salty meat slowly. It's not pleasant, but it's protein. And then there's the coffee. Oh, the coffee. The one thing that promises a jolt of warmth and energy. But this is not the coffee you know. The beans were likely green when you bought them at an exorbitant price from the camp's general store. You roasted them yourself over the fire, probably burning them in the process. Then you crushed them with the butt of your pistol or a rock. You dump the coarse grounds into the tin pot with water from the creek, the same creek you hope the man upstream with the dysentery isn't using, and boil it. You boil it until it's a thick, black, bitter sludge. There's no filter. You let the grounds settle to the bottom and try to pour the liquid off the top. Inevitably, you get a mouthful of gritty sediment with every sip. To cut the unbelievable bitterness, some men add a pinch of salt or even a crushed eggshell if they have one. It doesn't really help, but you drink it. You drink it because it's hot, and the caffeine is a necessary spark to ignite your exhausted body. It's a ritual, the one moment of the morning that feels almost civilized, even if the taste is an assault on your senses. There are no fresh fruits, no vegetables, no dairy. A diet like this, day in and day out, takes its toll. Scurvy is rampant in the camps. Men's gums bleed, their teeth loosen, old wounds reopen. They call it mountain fever or land sickness, not understanding its simple malnutrition. They blame the air or the water, never the monotonous diet of flour, salt, pork, and beans. You finish your gritty coffee, scrape your plate clean with a piece of hardtack biscuit, and stand up. Your body is fueled, if not nourished. The sun is now cresting the canyon walls, and its light doesn't bring warmth, only the signal that it's time to go to work. The dream of gold doesn't wait for you to digest. It's waiting in the ice-cold water of the creek, and it demands its payment in sweat and pain. Before you can chase the dream, you need the tools. And in the Wild West, tools are not easily acquired. Everything has been hauled over mountains and across deserts, and the price reflects that journey. The men who sell shovels often make more money than the men who use them. Your arsenal is simple, heavy, and brutally functional. There are no complex machines, no engines, just an extension of your own muscle and will. First, the pan. This is the iconic tool of the prospector, a shallow, wide-mouthed pan made of sheet iron. It looks simple, almost like a cooking pan, but it is your primary instrument for finding color. It's your divining rod, your crystal ball, your best friend, and your worst enemy. It's surprisingly heavy, and after a few hours of use, it will feel like it's made of lead. A good pan costs a small fortune, and you guard it jealously. Losing your pan is like losing your hands. Next, the pickaxe. This is for the hard parts, for breaking up the stubborn, compacted gravel in the creek bed, or chipping away at the quartz veins in the hillside that might hold a trace of gold. It's heavy, unwieldy, and requires a strong back and a steady swing. The shock of the pick striking rock travels up the wooden handle and into your arms, a jarring, repetitive impact that will leave your joints screaming by the end of the day. Then there is the shovel. A simple, sturdy shovel for moving earth. You will move tons of it. You will shovel dirt, gravel, and mud until the act becomes a thoughtless, mechanical rhythm. Your shovel will become a part of you, its wooden handle smoothed and stained by the sweat of your hands. It is the most honest tool you own. It promises nothing but hard work. If you're working with a team or have had a bit of luck, you might have a rocker or a sluice box. These are slightly more advanced technologies. A rocker, or cradle, is a wooden box on rockers. You shovel gravel into it, pour water over it, and rock it back and forth. The water washes away the lighter sand and dirt, while the heavier gold particles get trapped in cleats or riffles at the bottom. It's more efficient than a pan, but it requires at least 2 men to operate, one to shovel and pour, one to rock, and a constant supply of water. A sluice box is even better. It's a long, sloping trough with riffles along the bottom. You divert a stream of water through it and shovel gold-bearing dirt in at the top. The water does the work, carrying away the waste and leaving the gold behind. A sluice box can process a huge amount of material in a day, but it's expensive to build, heavy to move, and requires a steady source of running water. It represents a serious investment, a bet that you've found a rich enough patch of ground to justify the effort. Finally, there's the gear you wear. Your boots, if you're lucky enough to have a sturdy pair, are your most important possession. They are likely oil-tanned leather, heavy and stiff. They are not waterproof. Your feet will be wet and cold all day, every day. Many men simply wear rags wrapped around their feet or go barefoot in the summer, risking cuts and infections. Your clothes are rough canvas or wool, stained with mud and sweat. They are your only protection against the elements. You gather your tools. The weight is familiar now, a comfort and a burden. The sun is higher, the air still cold. You walk towards the creek, your shadow long behind you. The tools don't promise you'll find gold. They only promise you the chance to look for it. And for now, that's enough. You've reached the creek. The water is crystal clear and deceptively beautiful. It's also breathtakingly cold, having just melted from the snows of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Stepping into it, even just ankle deep, sends a shock of cold through your entire body that never truly goes away. This is your office for the next 12 hours. The work is called placer mining. Placer gold is the loose gold, the flakes and nuggets that have eroded from the mountains over millennia and been washed down into the streams and rivers. It's mixed in with sand, gravel, and mud. Your job is to separate it. You start by finding a likely spot, a bend in the river or a place behind a large boulder where the current slows down and might have dropped its heavy treasure. You fill your pan about halfway with gravel and dirt from the creek bed. You then submerge the pan in the water. This begins the slow, methodical, and agonizingly repetitive process of panning. You hold the pan with both hands and begin to swirl it in a circular motion. The goal is to let the water wash away the lighter material, the sand, the dirt, the pebbles, while the much heavier gold sinks to the bottom. It sounds simple. It is not. The motion has to be just right, too vigorous, and you'll wash the gold right out with the dirt. Too gentle, and you'll never get rid of the waste material. It's a delicate dance, a feel you develop over weeks of trial and error. Your back is bent at an excruciating angle. Your knees are submerged in the freezing water. Your arms and shoulders burn from the constant swirling motion. You swirl and tilt, letting the muddy water spill over the edge. You pick out the larger rocks with your fingers, examining each one for a moment before tossing it aside. More swirling, the contents of your pan slowly diminish. After several minutes of this, you're left with just a small amount of heavy black sand at the bottom. Now comes the moment of truth, the moment that keeps you going. You tilt the pan carefully, letting a thin stream of water wash over the black sand. You hold your breath. Your eyes strain, looking for a telltale glint of yellow. Most of the time, there is nothing, just black sand. Your heart sinks, just a little. You dump the contents of the pan and start over, and over, and over. You do this hundreds of times a day. Your world shrinks to the contents of your pan. The sun climbs overhead, beating down on your back. You don't notice. The cold water numbs your legs. You don't notice. Other men work up and down the creek, their movements mirroring yours, a silent fraternity of aching backs and fading hopes. But then, one time, you see it. A tiny, almost imperceptible fleck of yellow at the edge of the black sand. It's no bigger than a grain of pepper, but it shines with a light all its own. Your heart leaps. It's real. Gold. You carefully work the fleck into the corner of your pan, then use your wet fingertip to pick it up and place it in a small leather pouch or a vial. This tiny speck of metal is your reward for hours of labor. It's worth maybe a few cents. You feel a surge of renewed energy. The dream is alive again. Maybe the next pan will hold a bigger flake. Maybe the one after that will have a small nugget. This is the addiction of the prospector. It's not the gold you have, but the gold you might find in the very next pan. So you bend your aching back again. You scoop up another panful of cold, heavy mud. You submerge it in the water. You begin to swirl. The sun beats down. Your muscles scream. The water freezes your skin. But you keep going, chasing that glint of yellow, a willing slave to the tyranny of the pan. The day stretches on, each pan a tiny cycle of hope and disappointment, a microcosm of your entire journey west. After weeks, maybe months, of the solitary agony of the pan, you might decide to graduate. You've found a promising stretch of the creek, a place that consistently yields a little bit of color. It's not enough to make you rich, but it's enough to make you believe there's more. It's time to scale up. It's time for the sluice box. You either build one yourself from scavenged lumber, or you pool your meager earnings with a few other men to buy one. A sluice box is essentially a man-made riverbed, a long wooden trough, sometimes 12 to 15 feet long, with wooden bars or riffles nailed across the bottom. The theory is simple. As you wash large amounts of dirt through the box, the heavy gold will get trapped behind the riffles, while the lighter sand and gravel wash away. This is no longer a one-man operation. Sluicing is teamwork. And teamwork in a mining camp is a delicate, often volatile thing. You and your partners choose your roles. Two of you will be the diggers, using your picks and shovels to break up the earth on the creek bank, sometimes digging yards away from the water. Another man will be the hauler, carrying the heavy, mud-caked dirt in buckets to the head of the sluice box. And one man, often the most experienced, will manage the box itself, ensuring the water flow is just right and that the dirt is fed in at a steady pace. The work is even more brutal than panning. The diggers are engaged in constant heavy labour, prying rocks and shoveling earth under the hot sun. The hauler is a human mule, carrying endless buckets of wet, heavy pay dirt, his shoulders and back on fire. And the man at the box is constantly bent over, his hands in the cold water, guiding the slurry and watching for any large nuggets that might appear. You have to divert part of the creek to run through your box. This might involve building a small dam of rocks and mud, a temporary structure that the river is constantly trying to reclaim. The water roars through the wooden channel, a constant, deafening sound. You can't talk over it. You communicate with shouts and hand signals. The sluice box devours earth. You feed it shovel after shovel, bucket after bucket. For hours you see nothing but muddy water flowing over the riffles. You are processing a mountain of dirt, trusting that a molehill of gold is accumulating at the bottom. This is where the trust issues begin. Your partners. Are they working as hard as you are? Is the man at the box honest? What if he pockets a small nugget when no one is looking? The paranoia begins to creep in. You watch them out of the corner of your eye. They watch you. A partnership born of necessity can easily dissolve into suspicion and resentment, especially when the rewards are slim. At the end of the day, with the sun setting and your bodies screaming for rest, comes the cleanup. You shut off the water flow. The roaring stops, replaced by an almost holy silence. With painstaking care you remove the riffles from the box. At the bottom, hopefully, is a concentration of black sand and, with any luck, gold. You carefully scrape this concentrate into your pan. Then, the final, tense ritual of panning begins, separating the last of the waste from the precious metal. The other men crowd around, their faces grim, their eyes fixed on the pan. Every man is doing the math in his head. How much did we get? How will we split it? Is it enough to cover the cost of food for the week? Sometimes, the cleanup is a success. You find a satisfying amount of gold dust and maybe a few small flakes. There are quiet nods of approval. The partnership will survive another day. Other times, the cleanup is a bitter disappointment. A full day of back-breaking labor for a few cents worth of gold. Tempers flare. Accusations are made. You didn't dig in the right spot. You let the water run too fast. The partnership might crumble right there on the riverbank, with men walking away, cursing each other's names. Even on a good day, the river is a constant threat. A sudden storm in the mountains upstream can send a flash flood roaring down the canyon with no warning. It can wash away your sluice box, your tools, and you. The current is unforgiving. A slip on a slick rock can mean a broken leg, or being swept away. The river that gives you gold can just as easily take your life. Working the sluice box is a gamble on a grander scale than the pan. It requires more effort, more investment, and more trust, and it can yield greater heartbreak. As you stare at the small amount of gold dust at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, was it worth it? The answer, whispered on the cold night air, is almost always the same. Not yet. But maybe tomorrow. The surface gold doesn't last forever. The easy pickings, the placer deposits in the creeks and rivers, are the first to go. After a few years, the lone prospector with his pan becomes a relic of a bygone era. The creeks have been panned, the banks have been sluiced, and the dream of finding a fortune lying in the dirt has faded. But the gold is still there. It's just not on the surface anymore. It's locked away, deep inside the earth, trapped in veins of quartz that run through the solid rock of the mountains. This is lode gold, and getting to it requires a different kind of miner and a different kind of hell. This is the world of hard rock mining. You've abandoned your claim on the creek. Maybe you sold it for a pittance, or maybe it just stopped paying. Now, you're a wage worker. You've traded the illusion of independence for the grim certainty of a paycheck from one of the large mining companies that are now moving in, buying up land, and bringing in industrial machinery. Your new workplace is not a sun-drenched canyon. It's a hole in the side of a mountain. A dark, wet, claustrophobic tunnel that smells of damp earth, blasting powder, and stale air. The first time you walk into the mine shaft, your body rebels. The sudden darkness is disorienting. The air is thick and cold, and it tastes of rock dust. The only light comes from the candle stuck to your hat or a small, smoky oil lamp. Its flickering flame casts dancing, monstrous shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Water drips constantly from the ceiling, running in muddy rivulets under your feet. The tunnel is narrow, and you have to stoop to avoid hitting your head on the low timber supports. These supports are the only thing holding hundreds of tons of rock and earth above you. They are often cut from green timber and installed hastily. You look at them, at the immense pressure they are under, and you try not to think about what would happen if one of them splintered. Cave-ins are a constant, unspoken fear. Every creak of the timbers, every pebble that falls from the ceiling, sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. Men are buried alive down here. It happens. You follow your shift boss deeper into the earth. The main tunnel might have tracks for ore carts, but soon you branch off into a smaller side tunnel, or drift, where the actual work is being done. Here, the air is even worse. The lack of ventilation means the air you breathe has already been in the lungs of the men working ahead of you. It's low on oxygen and high on carbon dioxide and rock dust. This dust is the slow killer. With every swing of the pick, with every drill hole hammered into the rock, a fine, sharp powder of silica is released into the air. You breathe it in, hour after hour, day after day. It settles deep in your lungs, scarring them, slowly turning them to stone. They call the result miner's consumption. It starts with a cough, a persistent, hacking cough that never goes away. Then comes shortness of breath, weakness, and eventually a slow, painful death by suffocation. Every man in the mine has the cough. It's the background music of this underground world. You reach the end of the drift. This is the face, the solid wall of rock you will spend the next 10 hours trying to conquer. The noise is deafening. The ringing of steel on stone echoes in the confined space. A relentless, percussive assault on your eardrums. There is no escape from it. It feels like you are inside a bell that is being struck again and again. Your job today is single jacking. You are given a hand drill, a short steel rod with a sharpened, star-shaped tip, and a 4-pound hammer. Your task is to drill a series of holes into the rock face. You hold the drill against the rock with one hand and strike it with the hammer with the other. After each strike, you give the drill a slight turn. It's an art of precision and endurance. You must strike the drill squarely, or you risk smashing your hand against the rock. The force of the blow must be immense to chip away at the hard quartz. You find a rhythm. Strike, turn, strike, turn. Your arm feels like it's being torn from its socket. Sweat pours down your face, mixing with the rock dust to form a gritty paste. Your candle flickers, threatening to go out and plunge you into absolute darkness. You do this for hours. 10 inches of progress is a good hour's work. You are not just a man anymore. You are a machine made of flesh and bone, slowly, painfully grinding your way into the mountain. And this is just the preparation. The real danger is yet to come. Because once the holes are drilled, it's time for the blasting. It's time for the Widowmaker. After hours of the mind-numbing, muscle-shredding work of drilling, the holes are finally ready. A dozen of them, each about 2 feet deep, pockmarking the rock face. Now comes the part of the job that mixes science with sheer, terrifying luck. It's time for the powder man. He is a specialist, a man who handles the explosives. He carries with him the new miracle of the age, dynamite. Invented by Alfred Nobel, it's far more powerful and stable than the old black powder. At least, that's the theory. The reality is that early dynamite was notoriously unstable. It could become sensitive with age, or if it got too cold, the nitroglycerin could seep out, forming crystals that could detonate with the slightest jolt. You and the other drillers clear out, retreating down the drift to a supposedly safe distance. The powder man works alone at the face. He carefully places sticks of dynamite into the drill holes. He inserts a blasting cap, which is connected to a long fuse. This is the most delicate part of the operation. The blasting caps are highly sensitive. A stray spark, a bit of static electricity, and the whole thing could go up in his face. He works by the dim, flickering light of his own candle. His movements are slow, deliberate, almost prayerful. Everyone holds him in a state of awe and terror. He is the high priest of this destructive ritual. Once the charges are set, he lights the fuses. The fuses are often cut to different lengths, intended to make the charges go off in sequence. But fuse quality is inconsistent. Sometimes they burn faster than expected. Sometimes they sputter and go out. The powder man lights the last fuse and then runs yelling, "Fire in the hole!" The cry echoes down the tunnel, a signal for everyone to brace themselves. You press yourself against the wall of the drift, flatten yourself to the ground, and cover your head with your arms. You wait. The explosion is not a single bang. It's a deafening, rolling concussion that slams into you, even from a distance. The very air is compressed, forcing itself into your lungs. The ground heaves. Dust and rock fragments fly through the air. The sound is so intense it feels like the mountain itself is screaming. Then, silence. A ringing, profound silence. You are deafened. Your ears will ring for hours, sometimes days. This is how miners slowly lose their hearing. You wait for the dust and fumes to clear. This is another invisible killer. The blast releases poisonous gases, including carbon monoxide. If you go back to the face too soon, you can be overcome by the foul air and suffocate before you even realize what's happening. After a few minutes, the shift boss gives the signal. It's time to go back. You and the other men, now called muckers, head to the face with your shovels and ore carts. Your job is to clear away the tons of shattered rock, the muck that the blast has created. It's heavy, dangerous work. The blast has fractured the rock, and the ceiling and walls of the drift are now unstable. Large chunks of rock can fall without warning, crushing anyone below. You work quickly but cautiously, your eyes constantly scanning the ceiling. And you are looking for more than just loose rock. You are looking for the reason you are here, gold. You examine the shattered quartz, looking for the telltale veins of yellow. Sometimes you see it, a thin, beautiful ribbon of gold running through a piece of rock. You toss that piece into the ore cart with a little more care. But the most terrifying discovery you can make is an unexploded charge, a misfire, a stick of dynamite that failed to detonate. It's now live, unstable, and buried somewhere in the pile of rubble you are shoveling. Hitting it with your shovel could set it off. The powder man is called back. It's his job to carefully locate and disarm the charge, a task that makes even the most hardened miners hold their breath. You work for hours, mucking out the rock, loading the ore carts and sending them back to the surface. The air is thick with dust, your lungs burn, your muscles ache. By the end of your 10-hour shift, you have moved several tons of rock. You have risked your life with drills and dynamite, and for this, you will be paid about $3. As you trudge out of the mine at the end of the day, blinking in the unfamiliar sunlight, your body is a wreck, but your mind is numb. You have survived another shift. You have faced the Widowmaker and walked away, but you know you have to do it all again tomorrow. And with every shift, you leave a little bit of your health, your hearing, and your soul behind in that dark, hungry hole in the mountain. Your dream of being an independent prospector, a master of your own destiny, died a long time ago in the muddy creek. Now, you are a company man, and that means you don't just work for the company, you live for it. Literally. Welcome to the company town. From a distance, it looks more orderly than the chaotic mining camps of the early days. The houses are identical, built in neat rows. There's a single general store, a boarding house, and a saloon, all owned and operated by the very same company that owns the mine. You don't own your home. You rent it from the company. The rent is automatically deducted from your wages. The house is a small, poorly constructed wooden shack. It's flimsy, drafty, and barely keeps out the cold. but you have no other choice. To work at the mine, you must live in the company's town. You need to buy food, supplies, tools. You go to the company store. The prices are exorbitant, far higher than they would be in an independent town. But there are no other stores. The company has a monopoly. You can't shop anywhere else. And you don't pay with cash. You are often paid in scrip, a form of currency printed by the company that is only valid at the company store. This is the heart of the trap. The company pays you in its own money, which you can only spend at its own store at inflated prices. It's a closed system designed to keep you in debt. At the end of the month, after the deductions for rent, for supplies from the store, for the mandatory hospital fee, for the terrible medical care you'll receive if you get hurt, you might find that you have nothing left. In fact, you might owe the company money. You have worked a full month of dangerous, back-breaking labor and have ended up deeper in debt than when you started. This is debt peonage. It's a form of modern-day serfdom. You can't leave because you owe the company money. You can't save up to pay off your debt because the system is designed to prevent it. You are trapped, bound to the company not by law but by economics. The company controls every aspect of your life. They control your housing, your food, your credit. They often control the local law enforcement. The town marshal is on the company payroll. If you cause trouble, you're not just fighting your boss, you're fighting the law. And what happens if you speak up? If you complain about the dangerous working conditions, the long hours, the low pay? What happens if you try to organize with other workers for a better deal? You get fired. And getting fired means you are immediately evicted from your company house. You are blacklisted. Your name sent to other mining companies in the region, ensuring you won't find work anywhere else. You are a troublemaker, an agitator. You are cast out, with no money, no home, and no prospects. So you keep your head down. You accept the rigged system. You go to work in the dark, dangerous mine. You come home to your cold, drafty shack. You buy your overpriced food at the company store with the company's scrip. You watch your debt grow. The dream of gold is a distant, bitter memory. The independence you came west to find has become a cruel joke. You are no longer a prospector searching for a fortune. You are a cog in a great, grinding machine, and the machine is fueled by your labor and your debt. Your life is no longer your own. It belongs to the company. You are caught in the company's chains, and the only escape, for many, is the grave. The dangers of the mine are not all sudden and violent like a cave-in or a dynamite blast. Some are slow, silent, and insidious. They are the sicknesses that settle into your body, the poisons that you absorb day by day, until they consume you from the inside out. The most common of these is the one every miner fears, silicosis, or as it's more commonly known, miner's consumption. It comes from the dust, the fine crystalline silica dust that is thrown into the air with every drill hole and every blast. You breathe it in all day, every day. It's too fine for your body to filter out. It goes deep into your lungs and stays there. The sharp, microscopic particles embed themselves in the soft tissue of your lungs. Your body tries to fight back, forming scar tissue around the particles. Over years, your lungs become a mass of this hard, fibrous tissue. They lose their elasticity. They can no longer expand and contract properly. You are, in essence, slowly turning to stone from the inside. It starts with a cough, a dry, persistent hack that you dismiss as just a miner's cough. Everyone has it. But then, it gets worse. You start to feel short of breath, even when you're not working. Climbing a flight of stairs leaves you winded. You wake up in the night gasping for air. As the disease progresses, the symptoms become debilitating. You lose weight. You are constantly fatigued. Your skin takes on a bluish tint from the lack of oxygen. The coughing becomes violent, racking your entire body. In the final stages, your lungs are so scarred that they can no longer absorb enough oxygen to keep you alive. You die of suffocation, a slow, agonizing process that can take years. There is no cure for silicosis. Once the dust is in your lungs, it's there forever. The doctors in the company town, if there are any, can do nothing for you. They might give you a cough syrup laced with alcohol or opium, which provides temporary relief but does nothing to stop the disease. When you can no longer work, the company fires you. You are of no use to them anymore. You are left to die in your shack, a burden to your family, your breath growing shorter with each passing day. Then there are the heavy metals. If you work in a mine that processes its own ore, you are exposed to mercury and arsenic, both highly toxic. Mercury was often used to extract gold from the ore through a process called amalgamation. The mercury binds with the gold, and then the mixture is heated to burn off the mercury, leaving the gold behind. When the mercury is burned, it turns into a vapor. You breathe it in. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin. It attacks your nervous system. The symptoms of mercury poisoning are horrifying. It starts with tremors, a shaking in your hands that you can't control. Your gums become inflamed. Your teeth loosen. You develop a metallic taste in your mouth and produce excessive saliva. Then the psychological symptoms begin. You become irritable, anxious, depressed. You have trouble sleeping. Your memory fails. You experience wild mood swings. They call it the Mad Hatter's disease, after the hat makers who used mercury to process felt. As the poisoning worsens, you can suffer from hallucinations, delirium, and eventually insanity and death. Arsenic is another common poison, often found alongside gold ore. When the ore is smelted, the arsenic is released as a gas. It's odorless and tasteless. You don't even know you're breathing it in. Arsenic poisoning causes severe stomach pain, vomiting, and diarrhea. Over time, it can lead to skin lesions, nerve damage, and cancer. These slow poisons are the unseen legacy of your time in the mine. You might survive the cave-ins and the explosions. You might avoid being crushed by an ore cart or falling down a shaft. But you can't escape the dust and the fumes. They become a part of you. You look at the older miners in the camp, the men who have been at it for 20 or 30 years. They are stooped and frail, their bodies racked by coughs. They shake with tremors. They seem lost and confused. They are a vision of your own future. The gold you dig from the earth comes at a terrible price. It's a price paid not in money but in years of your life, in the function of your lungs, in the clarity of your mind. You are trading your health for a wage, your future for a pittance. And it's a trade you are forced to make every single day, with every breath you take in the dark, poisoned air of the mine. You look around the mine, the camp, the town. You were sold a story about rugged American individuals, but the reality is far more complex and far less harmonious. The Wild West, and especially the goldfields, is a collision of cultures from every corner of the globe. But this is no peaceful melting pot. It's a brutal hierarchy, and your place in it is often determined not by your work ethic, but by the language you speak and the shape of your eyes. You work alongside Irishmen who fled the famine, their faces etched with a familiar hardship. You hear the guttural tones of German immigrants, the soft lilt of Welshmen who knew coal mining back home, and the boisterous shouts of Australians who chased gold across the Pacific. These men are, like you, considered white, and though rivalries and stereotypes exist, you are all part of the same general class of labour. But there are others who are treated differently, men who are relegated to the most dangerous jobs for the lowest pay, men whose presence is tolerated only as long as they provide cheap labour. You see the Chinese miners. They arrived by the thousands, drawn by the same dream of gold, which they call Gamsan, or Gold Mountain. They are instantly recognizable by their traditional cues, long, braided hair, and their quiet, disciplined way of working. They are masters of placer mining, often working claims that white miners have abandoned, patiently extracting the last traces of gold with meticulous skill and teamwork. Their success breeds resentment. The other miners, frustrated by their own failures, look upon the Chinese with a mixture of contempt and jealousy. They are called Celestials, a name that is not a compliment. They are accused of being slaves, of sending all their gold back to China, of being unclean and immoral. The racism is open, vicious, and often violent. You see them forced into the worst sections of town, into cramped, squalid encampments that become known as Chinatowns. Their homes are burned, their claims are stolen by force. They are subjected to a special foreign miners' tax, a crippling fee designed specifically to drive them out of the mines. And when violence erupts, they have no recourse. The law does not protect them. An American miner can murder a Chinese miner and face no consequences. Yet they persevere. They form their own tight-knit communities, their own social structures, their own systems of justice. They work harder, live more frugally, and endure a level of hatred that would break most men. They are a silent, resilient testament to a different kind of strength. You also see the Mexican miners, the mineros. Many of them were here long before you were. They are not immigrants. This land was their home before it was part of the United States. They brought with them centuries of mining knowledge from the great silver mines of Mexico. They understand the geology, the techniques, the art of it, in a way most of the newcomers do not. The very term placer mining comes from Spanish. The flat-bottomed pan, the batilla, was their invention. Their expertise is both valued and stolen. In the early days, American miners would watch and learn from the mineros, adopting their tools and techniques. But as the rush intensified, gratitude turned to hostility. The Mexicans, like the Chinese, were seen as foreigners in their own land. They were pushed off the richest claims. Their land grants, once protected by treaty, were challenged in biased courts and often stripped away. And then there are the Native Americans, the people who have lived on this land for 10,000 years. For them, the gold rush is not a dream, it is an apocalypse. The tidal wave of miners, the 49ers, descends upon their ancestral lands with a destructive force that is almost unimaginable. The miners see the land as a resource to be torn apart for profit. They divert rivers, fell forests, and slaughter game with no regard for the consequences. The sacred places of the native tribes are desecrated. The salmon runs that have sustained them for generations are choked with mining debris, and the violence is systematic and genocidal. The miners, often with the support of local militias and even the state government, engage in a campaign of extermination. They attack native villages, killing men, women, and children. Bounties are offered for scalps. Children are kidnapped and sold into slavery. A people who had lived in balance with this land for millennia are hunted like animals. You are a part of this, whether you want to be or not. You are one of the invaders. You try not to think about it. You tell yourself you are just here to work, to make a living. But you see the fear in the eyes of the few native people who dare to come near the camps. You hear the casual, dehumanizing language the other miners use. You are witnessing the erasure of a people, and the gold you seek is stained with their blood. This is the unspoken truth of the gold rush. The wealth that is being ripped from the earth is being built on a foundation of racial violence, exploitation, and cultural destruction. The dream is not for everyone. For many, the gold mountain is just a mass grave. And the dust you breathe is not just rock. It's the ashes of other people's worlds. Your 10-hour shift in the suffocating darkness is over. The company whistle screams, a sound that signals both release and exhaustion. You stumble out of the mine's mouth, blinking against the harsh light of the setting sun, your body a single, throbbing ache. Your face is caked in a mask of grime. Your clothes are soaked with sweat and muddy water, and your lungs are full of dust. Now what? You trudge back toward the bleak, uniform rows of the company town. This is the part of the day where the physical misery begins to recede, replaced by a profound, hollow emptiness. You have risked your life for a few dollars of scrip, and now you have 14 hours of your own time to fill before you have to do it all again. The town, if you can call it that, offers few comforts. It's a place built for function, not for living. The unpaved streets are either ankle-deep in mud or choking with dust. There is no park, no library, no church, no place for quiet contemplation. There is only the company store, the grim boarding houses, and the saloons. You return to your rented shack, or, more likely, your bunk in a boarding house. The boarding house is a long, foul-smelling room filled with dozens of other men. The bunks are stacked 3 high. The mattresses are thin, straw-filled sacks, crawling with lice and bedbugs. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale tobacco smoke, and cheap whiskey. You have a small footlocker for your meagre possessions, and you keep it locked. Honesty is a rare commodity in a place like this. You wash your face and hands in a communal basin of cold, murky water. Then, it's time for dinner. You head to the company-run mess hall. The food is as monotonous and uninspired as the breakfast. A stew of questionable meat and root vegetables, a chunk of hard bread, and more bitter coffee. You eat quickly, without talking much. Everyone is too tired. After dinner, the emptiness of the evening stretches before you. What do? You could sit in your bunk and stare at the wooden slats above you. You could try to write a letter home, but you're barely literate, and what would you say? How could you describe this life in a way that your family would understand? How could you tell them that the grand adventure has become a grim, repetitive nightmare, that you are trapped and in debt, that you are slowly dying for a wage that barely feeds you? It's easier not to write, so you drift, like everyone else, toward the only source of light, noise, and temporary oblivion in town, the saloon. The saloon is not the glamorous, swinging-door establishment of Hollywood movies. It's a rough, dirty, poorly lit room. The floor is covered in sawdust, spit, and spilled liquor. The bar is a long plank of unfinished wood set on barrels. The air is a thick fog of smoke from cheap cigars and pipes. The place is packed. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, their faces illuminated by the flickering, greasy light of oil lamps. They are shouting, laughing, arguing. They are trying desperately to forget the mine, to forget their debts, to forget the cough that is settling deeper into their chests. You push your way to the bar. The whiskey they serve here is called rot gut, and for good reason. It's raw, cheap alcohol, often mixed with tobacco juice, red pepper, or even turpentine to give it more of a kick. It burns a fiery path down your throat and hits your stomach like a punch. But it's cheap, and it works fast. After one drink, the edges of your exhaustion begin to soften. The ache in your back feels a little more distant. The ringing in your ears is drowned out by the noise of the saloon. After 2 drinks, you start to feel a reckless, hollow sense of camaraderie with the men around you. You are all in the same trap. You are all slaves to the same company. This shared misery is the only brotherhood you have. You might find a game of cards, faro or poker. The stakes are small, but the gambling is intense. Men will bet their last few cents of scrip on the turn of a card, chasing a small victory in a life full of losses. Fights break out constantly over accusations of cheating. These are not noble duels. They are clumsy, drunken brawls. Men swing wild punches, smash chairs over each other's heads, and are thrown out into the muddy street to settle it with fists or, sometimes, with knives. Violence is the wallpaper of this town. It's born of frustration, desperation, and alcohol. A misplaced word, a spilled drink, a dispute over a card game, any of these can escalate into deadly violence in a matter of seconds. Everyone is armed, but the guns are rarely used in the quick-draw showdowns of legend. They are used in sudden, impulsive acts of rage, in ambushes in dark alleys, or in the settling of drunken grudges. Life is cheap here. A man can be killed over a $2 pot, and the town will have forgotten his name by morning. You have another drink. The noise of the saloon becomes a dull roar. The faces around you blur. For a few hours, you are not a miner. You are not in debt. You are not sick. You are just a man in a loud, smoky room, and tomorrow is a problem for another version of you. This is what the company sells you. A cage to work in and a bottle to forget the bars. And you buy it every night, because forgetting, even for a little while, is the only luxury you can afford. In a place built on desperation and fueled by cheap whiskey, you might wonder where the law is. The answer is complicated. Law in a company mining town is not about justice, It's about order, and order means keeping the mines running. The town has a marshal, or maybe a sheriff. He wears a tin star on his chest, but his loyalty is not to the people. It's to the company that pays his salary. His job is not to protect you. His job is to protect the company's assets, the mine, the store, the flow of profit. If a man is killed in a bar fight, the sheriff might make a cursory investigation, but unless the victim was a shift boss or someone important to the company, the case will likely go unsolved. The death of a common labourer is just a temporary inconvenience, a bunk to be filled by the next desperate man to wander into town. However, if you do something that threatens the company's bottom line, the law will come down on you with swift and brutal force. If you are accused of theft from the company store, you will be arrested. If you try to organise a strike for better wages or safer conditions, you will be branded a criminal agitator and thrown in jail, or worse, run out of town. The lawman's badge is just another tool of control, another link in the company's chain. But what about crimes that the company doesn't care about? Claim jumping, horse theft, disputes between miners. In the absence of effective, impartial law enforcement, the men often take the law into their own hands. This is the world of vigilante justice. When a particularly heinous crime is committed, or when the miners feel that the official law is failing them, a miners' court might be convened. This is not a formal legal proceeding. It's a mob. A group of angry, often drunken, men gather to pass judgment. The accused is dragged before the crowd. There is no defense attorney, no presumption of innocence. Witnesses shout their testimony. Rumor is treated as fact. The verdict is decided by a roar from the crowd. And the sentence is almost always the same: death. The execution is a public spectacle. The condemned man is marched to the nearest sturdy tree. A rope is slung over a branch. A noose is fitted around his neck. He might be given a moment to say a few last words, or he might not. Then he is hoisted into the air, his body twitching and struggling at the end of the rope. They call this a necktie social. The whole town turns out to watch. It's a form of entertainment, a release for the pent-up anger and frustration of the community. It's a grim reminder of the thin veneer of civilization that covers this raw, violent world. This brand of justice is swift and certain, but it is not just. Innocent men are hanged on the basis of flimsy evidence or personal grudges. A man's fate can be sealed by his unpopularity or the colour of his skin. The vigilante's rope is a tool of fear, a way for the dominant group to enforce its own brutal code of conduct. You learn the rules quickly. Keep your head down. Don't stand out. Don't get on the wrong side of the wrong people. Because in this town, there are two kinds of law. The company's law, which is designed to keep you poor, and the mob's law, which is designed to keep you afraid. Neither one is on your side. You are on your own, a solitary figure navigating a landscape where justice is just another word for power, and a rope is never just a rope. Sooner or later it's going to happen. You'll slip on a wet rock and break your leg. A piece of falling timber in the mine will crush your hand. Or the persistent, hacking cough in your chest will turn into a raging fever. You're sick, you're injured, you need a doctor. Too bad you live in a place where medicine is often more dangerous than the disease. If your town is big enough, it might have a doctor. He's probably not a real doctor, not in the way you'd understand it. He has no formal training from a reputable medical school. He's more likely a failed pharmacist, a former barber, or just a man with a strong stomach and a collection of scary-looking tools. They call him the Sawbones, and you pray you never have to see him. His office is a small, dirty room at the back of the general store. The air smells of unwashed linen, carbolic acid, and stale blood. His surgical tools, saws, knives, probes, are laid out on a stained wooden table. They are not sterilized. The concept of germ theory is still a new, radical idea that hasn't reached this remote corner of the world. He might wipe his tools on a rag between patients, but that's the extent of his hygiene. Let's say you've broken your leg. The Sawbones will examine it, probably while you're biting down on a leather strap to keep from screaming. There is no effective anesthesia beyond a large dose of whiskey or laudanum, an opium tincture that will leave you in a stupor. He will attempt to set the bone. This involves yanking and pulling on your leg until the bones are roughly aligned. He will then fashion a splint from pieces of wood and wrap it tightly with rags. There is no X-ray to see if the bone is set correctly. You just have to hope he did a decent job. If he didn't, the bone will heal improperly, leaving you with a permanent limp and chronic pain for the rest of your short life. If the wound is open, the risk of infection is almost 100%. The doctor will wash the wound with water from the same dirty basin he uses for everything else. He might apply a poultice of bread and mold or some other folk remedy. The wound will be stitched up with a regular needle and thread. Within a few days, the infection will set in. Your leg will swell and turn red. You'll develop a raging fever. The pain will be unbearable. The doctor will come back. He will look at the festering, pus-filled wound and shake his head. The infection has turned to gangrene. He will tell you there's only one option left: amputation. The procedure is a nightmare from a medieval torture chamber. You are held down by several strong men. You are given as much whiskey as you can swallow. The sawbones takes out his bone saw. It is not clean. He begins to saw through your leg. The sound of the saw cutting through your bone is a sound you will never forget if you survive. The pain is so immense that you will likely pass out. Many men die of shock on the operating table. If you survive the amputation, you now face the risk of dying from a post-operative infection. Without antibiotics, even a successful surgery can lead to a fatal case of blood poisoning. And what about sickness? The camp is a breeding ground for disease. The lack of sanitation, the contaminated water, the crowded living conditions, it's a perfect storm for epidemics. Typhoid, cholera, dysentery, smallpox and tuberculosis sweep through the camps with devastating regularity. The medical treatments are based on outdated and dangerous theories. The doctor might try to balance your humors by bleeding you, draining your body of the very blood it needs to fight the infection. He might prescribe mercury compounds, which are potent poisons, or other toxic substances that do more harm than good. For the miners suffering from silicosis, there is nothing he can do. He will tell them it's just a cough, that they need to get more fresh air, a cruel irony for men who spend their lives in a dark, airless hole. You quickly realize that your health is in your own hands. You learn to treat your own minor cuts and bruises. You learn folk remedies from other miners. You learn to be incredibly careful, because you know that any serious injury or illness is likely a death sentence. The company deducts a medical fee from your wages every month, but it's a sham. The care you receive is worthless, if not actively harmful. The company doctor is there not to heal you, but to provide the illusion of care, to keep the workforce from panicking. You live with a constant, low-level fear of your own body's fragility. A simple cough could be the start of consumption. A stomachache could be the first sign of cholera. A small cut could lead to the sore. In this world, the greatest wealth you can have is not gold, but a body that continues to function, against all odds, for one more day. You look around the mining town, at the sea of rough, bearded, lonely men. It's a world almost entirely without women. The few who are here exist in two separate, rigidly defined categories. They are either respectable or they are fallen. There is no in-between. The respectable women are the wives and daughters of the company bosses, the store owner, or the very few miners who have managed to bring their families west. They are ghosts in this landscape. You see them only from a distance, moving quickly between their homes and the company store, their long skirts trailing in the dust. They are symbols of a domestic, civilized world that you have left far behind. They do not speak to men like you. They do not make eye contact. Their presence is a constant, silent reminder of the families, the warmth, the softness you have lost. These women live lives of incredible hardship and isolation. They fight a daily battle against the dirt, the disease, and the crushing loneliness of the frontier. They are expected to maintain a home, raise children, and provide a bastion of morality in a world awoken with vice. Their work is as hard as any miner's, but it is unpaid and unseen. Then there are the other women, the ones who live and work in the saloons and the brothels, which are often one and the same. They are called soiled doves, fallen angels, or a dozen other, cruder names. They are not ghosts. They are vividly, tragically present. They are the only women who will talk to you, who will touch you, who will offer a fleeting illusion of intimacy in a life devoid of it. For this, they are both desired and despised. Most of these women are not here by choice. They are widows who lost their husbands in the mines. They are young women who were abandoned by their families or by the men who brought them west with false promises. They are women with no other way to survive in a world that offers them few economic opportunities. Prostitution is a desperate last resort. Their lives are brutal and short. They are at the mercy of the saloon owners who exploit them and the drunken, violent men they serve. They are at constant risk of disease, with no access to effective medical care. They are often addicted to the same alcohol and laudanum that numbs the pain of their existence. You might spend a portion of your meager wages on a few minutes of their time. In a small, cramped room above the saloon, you might find a moment of human connection that feels almost real. But it is a transaction, a brief respite from your loneliness that leaves you feeling even emptier afterward. These women are the ultimate victims of the gold rush dream. They are the human debris left in the wake of the relentless pursuit of wealth. They are treated as commodities, their bodies bought and sold, their humanity erased. You see the stark contrast between the two types of women in the camp, and you understand the rigid, unforgiving moral code of this world. A woman's value is defined entirely by her relationship to men and her perceived purity. There is no room for independence, no room for complexity, and you realize the profound absence in your own life. You miss the sound of a woman's laughter that isn't for sale. You miss the comfort of a mother, a sister, a wife. The lack of genuine female companionship contributes to the coarseness, the violence, and the deep, unspoken sadness of the camp. It is a world out of balance, a society of lonely, angry men who have forgotten what it means to be gentle. And the women who are here, in their own ways, are just as trapped as you are, survivors in a wilderness that has 1,000 ways to break a person's body and soul. As you lie on your hard, flea-bitten bunk at night, the sounds of the drunken camp echoing outside, you might find yourself dreaming, but you are not dreaming of gold anymore. The fantasy of finding the mother lode, the great vein of pure gold that will make you a king, has long since faded. That dream has been replaced by smaller, more desperate, and more human ones. You dream of food. Not the greasy flapjacks and salty pork of the camp, but a real meal. You dream of your mother's kitchen, the smell of baking bread, a bowl of hot, fresh vegetable soup. You can almost taste it. You dream of an apple, crisp and sweet, a peach, its juice running down your chin. In your dreams, you eat until you are full, a feeling you haven't truly known since you came west. You wake up with your stomach aching with a hunger that is not just for food, but for home. You dream of being clean. You dream of a hot bath, of soap that lathers, of clean clothes that don't scratch your skin. You dream of sinking into the water and scrubbing away the layers of dirt, sweat and rock dust until your skin is pink and new. You dream of washing the mine out of your pores, out of your soul. You dream of a soft bed, a real bed, with a thick mattress, clean sheets, and a pillow that doesn't smell of mildew. You dream of sleeping through the night without being woken by the cold, the snores of the men around you, or the gnawing of lice. You dream of a deep, restful sleep, the kind that actually heals your aching body. You dream of silence. Not the ringing silence of the mine after a blast, but a peaceful, gentle quiet. You dream of a place where you can't hear men coughing, shouting, fighting. You dream of lying in a field and hearing nothing but the wind in the grass and the buzzing of bees. Most of all, you dream of a letter from home. You walk to the camp's makeshift post office every day, even though you know the mail only comes once a month, if it comes at all. You wait for your name to be called, for a thin, precious piece of paper that has travelled 1,000 miles to reach you. A letter would be a lifeline, a tangible link to the world you left behind. It would be proof that you are still remembered, that you are still loved, that you are more than just a number on the company payroll. These are the new dreams of the prospector. They are not dreams of wealth, but of simple, human comforts. They are the dreams of a man who has been stripped of everything but the raw will to survive. The gold was a lie. The adventure was a lie. The only truth left is the deep, gnawing ache of loneliness and the desperate longing for a life that feels human again. You lie in the darkness, and you let these small dreams carry you. They are all you have left. They are your only escape from the cold, hard reality of the mine, and you cling to them with the same fierce desperation with which you once clung to the dream of gold, because you know that if you lose these dreams too, you will have nothing left at all. You will just be another ghost in the machine, another soul lost in the dust of the gold mountain. Years pass. You don't count them. You count the seasons, the winters you've survived, the faces that have come and gone. Your body is a wreck. Your hands are gnarled claws. Your back is permanently stooped. The cough in your chest is your constant companion. The ringing in your ears never stops. You are one of the old-timers now. The new arrivals, with the same foolish dream in their eyes that you once had, look at you with a mixture of pity and fear. You are a walking ghost, a cautionary tale. You are what happens when you stay too long. You did not strike it rich. You did not find the mother lode. You have no savings. Every dollar of scrip you earned was fed back to the company in the form of rent and overpriced supplies. You are as poor today as you were the day you arrived. Poorer, in fact, because you have lost your health, your youth, and your hope. What happens to you now? There is no retirement plan for a worn-out miner. There is no pension. When your body finally gives out, when you can no longer lift a shovel or swing a hammer, the company has no more use for you. You are fired. You are evicted from your bunk in the boarding house. You are cast out. You might try to find other work. Sweeping the floor of the saloon, washing dishes, doing odd jobs for a few cents. But you are weak and sick. There are younger, stronger men to take those jobs. So you end up on the edge of town, living in a makeshift hovel built from scrap wood and canvas. You survive on charity, on the scraps of food that the mess hall throws out, on the occasional drink bought for you by a miner who feels a fleeting moment of pity. Your cough gets worse. It racks your body, leaving you breathless and exhausted. You know what it is. You've seen it happen to hundreds of other men. Miners' consumption. You are drowning on dry land. One day, you don't have the strength to get up. You lie in your cold, damp hovel, your breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. There is no one to care for you. No family, no friends. The men you worked with for years are busy in the mine, their lives moving on without you. You die alone. Your body might not be discovered for days. When it is, there is no ceremony. No one mourns you. You have no possessions to be passed on, no family to be notified. You are just another dead miner. Your body is taken to the town's graveyard. It's usually on a bleak, windswept hill just outside of town. They call it Boot Hill, because so many of its residents were buried with their boots on, having died in a sudden, violent manner. There is no coffin for you. You are wrapped in your threadbare blanket and placed in a shallow, hastily dug grave. The grave is marked with a simple wooden cross, if you're lucky. More likely, it's just a pile of rocks. Your name is not written on it. No one remembers your name. Within a few years, the wooden cross will rot away, the pile of rocks will scatter, and there will be no trace that you ever existed. This is the end for the vast majority of the men who came west, chasing the dream of gold. Not a triumphant return home with pockets full of nuggets, but a lonely, anonymous death in a town that has already forgotten you. You are just one more unmarked grave on a lonely hill, your story swallowed by the vast, indifferent wilderness. Your life, your labor, your suffering, all of it has been consumed by the great hungry maw of the gold rush. You came seeking a fortune, and all you found was a 6-foot plot of worthless dirt. Your final resting place is the only piece of this land you will ever truly own. So, how's your journey been? You've woken up in freezing misery, eaten food that would make a prisoner revolt, worked your body until it frayed at the seams, and breathed in enough dust to turn your lungs to granite. You've navigated a world of casual violence, corporate servitude, and profound loneliness. You've seen how the grand, shining myth of the Wild West was built on the anonymous, suffering backs of men like you. Still think you could last a week? The romanticized version of the gold prospector, the lucky, independent hero who tames the wilderness and finds a fortune through grit and good fortune, is one of America's most enduring fables. It's a story we want to believe. It speaks to ideas of self-reliance, of manifest destiny, of the possibility of miraculous transformation. But the reality was a grim industrial process that valued human life less than the ore it extracted. It was a story of exploitation, of workers by companies, of races by each other, and of the land by everyone. The gold that flowed out of these mountains and financed the growth of a nation was paid for with a currency of broken bodies, shattered lungs, and forgotten graves. The true legacy of the gold miner isn't the wealth he created for others, but the quiet resilience he embodied. The ability to wake up every single day, face a world of overwhelming hardship and danger, and still find the strength to pick up a tool and go to work. It wasn't a life of adventure, it was a life of endurance. So tonight, when you lie down in your warm, soft bed, in a room with clean air and quiet walls, think of the men who lay down in their cold, noisy bunks, their bodies aching, their lungs burning, dreaming not of gold, but of a hot meal and a letter from home. The comfort and safety that we take for granted were luxuries beyond their wildest imaginations. They are the ghosts of the Wild West, not the gunslingers or the lawmen, but the ordinary, forgotten men who dug their own graves in search of a dream that was never really meant for them. Their story is not glamorous, it is not exciting, but it is true. And it is a powerful reminder that the foundation of our modern world is often built on the quiet, uncelebrated suffering of those who came before us. Their voices are gone, lost to the wind that blows through the empty canyons, but if you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of their picks against the stone, a lonely, rhythmic sound in the heart of the great, silent wilderness.